The war room was cloaked in shadows, save for the faint luminescence of holographic stars spinning slowly above the central table. Kaelen stood at the forefront, his gaze steady as dozens of representatives from the fractured galaxy's factions watched him intently. The air was thick with skepticism, the scent of recycled air mixed with the faint hum of energy fields designed to suppress emotional outbursts. Yet, within Kaelen burned an unyielding flame, a flare of hope that refused to be extinguished. "Look beyond the dying light," Kaelen began, his voice calm but resolute, echoing softly through the chamber. Solara Prime's collapse was not an end, but a signal, a beacon calling us back to what we lost, to a future we can still build together. He gestured toward the holographic galaxy, where flickering points of light represented suns and their orbiting worlds. Each sun here carries consciousness, a spark of life intertwined with ours. The rebellion is not merely a conflict, it is a chance for rebirth. We stand at the threshold of a new dawn, if only we choose to embrace it. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many faces bore the weariness of years steeped in conflict, distrust etched deep in their lines. But Kaelen pressed on, weaving ancient solar codes he had painstakingly decoded into his speech, translating the language of light into words that stirred the soul. Maris Valen, standing near the rear, her bronze armor catching the faint glimmers of the holographic stars, stepped forward. "Kaelen speaks the truth," she declared, her voice a powerful counterpoint to the doubts that lingered. "For too long, we have wielded our sons as weapons, letting fear and ambition blind us. It is time to forge bonds anew between suns, between planets, and between us all." The room's atmosphere shifted perceptibly. Senator Draxon, a stalwart of the Galactic Council and a known skeptic of the rebellion's goals, folded his arms, his eyes narrowing. "Words are wind," he said gruffly. "How do you propose to unite entities that have waged war for centuries?" Kaelen met his gaze calmly. "Through understanding, through connection. The solar consciousness is not an enemy. It is a part of our shared existence. By learning its language, we can bridge divides once thought insurmountable." At that moment, the chamber's ambient lights dimmed briefly, and a figure of radiant golden light shimmered into view. Alira, the avatar of solar consciousness. Her form pulsed gently, sending waves of warmth and light that seemed to soothe the room's tension. She began to emit a melody, an ancient solar song encoded in harmonies of flickering light and delicate energy pulses. The sound was not merely heard, but felt, resonating deep within the hearts of all present. Eyes widened, breaths caught, and a silence fell, palpable with newfound hope. As the song faded, Illyra's voice, soft yet commanding, spoke directly to their minds. "Together, we shine brighter. Together, we endure beyond the dying light." Maris Valen approached Kaelen after the assembly, her grip firm on his arm. "You have ignited something here," she said, her voice tinged with awe and relief. "For the first time in decades, I believe we might truly find a way forward." Kaelen nodded, though he knew the road ahead was fraught with peril. The alliance was fragile, the wounds deep, and the shadows of old betrayals loomed. But the spark was lit, a flare of hope that could grow into a blaze to illuminate the darkest corners of their fractured galaxy. Outside, beyond the confines of the war room, a distant sun flared brightly against the infinite blackness of space. Its dying light spilled over nearby planets, painting them in hues of gold and crimson. It was a silent testament to the chapter closing and the new one beginning, a cosmic reminder that even in endings, there is the promise of dawn. Kaelen turned his gaze skyward, feeling the warmth of that light infuse his being. "We will rise," he whispered, From dying light, a new dawn will come. As the factions began tentative discussions of cooperation, the galaxy held its breath, caught between the shadows of its past and the fragile promise of its future. And in that moment, Kaelen understood that the true power of the solar consciousness was not destruction, but the unyielding capacity to inspire hope even when all seemed lost. But as the light spread, so too did the whispers of those who would see the rebellion crushed, the old order preserved at any cost. The flare of hope had been kindled, but would it endure the coming storms? The answer lay in the choices they would make and the unity they could sustain. The dawn was near, but the night was not yet over, and with that, the galaxy's fate hung, fragile and radiant, on the edge of a new beginning. The observation deck hummed with a low, constant vibration, the heartbeat of the solar nexus, the networked core of the sun's communication and energy exchange. Kaelen stood alone, eyes fixed on the panoramic vista before him, a cluster of suns that usually blazed with radiant life, now strangely muted. One by one, the familiar flares, the solar winds that danced like flickering flames across the void, were vanishing. It was as if the light itself was being swallowed, leaving a void where warmth and brilliance had reigned. The silence was unnatural. Kaelen's breath caught as he reached for the panel, his fingers trembling slightly. "Illyra, are you receiving this?" he asked. A faint crackle answered before Illyra's voice came through, calm but edged with unease. "Yes, Kaelen. The suns in sectors 12 through 19 have gone dark. It's unprecedented. I'm initiating a deep scan now." He nodded, though she couldn't see it. The silence was more than just an absence of sound. It was a void, an ominous blankness that seemed to stretch beyond the physical into the very fabric of reality. Moments later, the command room filled with tense figures. Commander Vesher stood at the center, his scarred face shadowed under the dim emergency lighting. "What the hell is happening to our suns?" he demanded, voice low but commanding. Kaelen stepped forward, bringing up star charts and energy pulse readings on the holoscreen. "It's not just a failure or a natural collapse. The silence is spreading, moving almost like a wave, and I've found embedded signals within the quiet fragments of a message from an entity called the Voidborn." The room fell into a stunned silence. Veshar's eyes narrowed. The Voidborn, old legends, stories told to scare children, or warnings from the creators, maybe. "They're real," Kaelen said, voice steady despite the weight of the revelation. "And they're returning." Illyra began interfacing with a dormant sun's core, her eyes glowing faintly as solar patterns danced across her vision. "When I probe the core, I feel a presence, something ancient and malevolent pushing back. It's as if the sun itself is fighting to hold on to its light, but it's weakening." In the eerie glow of the neural interface chamber, Kaelen watched as the data streamed in shadows within shadows, darkness that absorbed even the smallest flicker of light. The Voidborn were not just a threat, they were an antithesis to everything the galaxy's suns represented. Hours passed in a blur of analysis and urgent communication. Factions that had once been poised on the brink of rebellion now faced a common enemy, yet trust was fragile. Whispers of sabotage and espionage circulated, fueled by fear and desperation. Kaelen's mind raced as he pieced together the ancient transmission hidden within the silence. The message was fragmented, but clear enough to warn of the Voidborn's hunger for solar energy, an insatiable force that could extinguish stars and erase entire systems. "We need a plan," Vesher said grimly. "If these things feed on light, then our weapons and defenses may be useless." Kaelen swallowed hard. There might be another way. The message hints at a technology, a remnant of the creators designed to counter the Voidborn. But it's lost, buried in the ruins of the Forgotten Worlds. The room erupted into a flurry of activity. Missions were planned, alliances tentative but necessary. Kaelen felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders heavier than ever before. As he prepared to depart for the first of the ruined worlds, a cold thought struck him. The galaxy had danced on the edge of war and rebellion for so long, but now, faced with the darkness that could snuff out all light, old conflicts seemed trivial. Yet, the question remained: could the suns and their subjects unite in time to confront a foe born from the very absence of light? Kaelen glanced once more at the darkened suns beyond the observation deck, their silent message echoing in his mind. The burning silence was a warning, a herald of a storm unlike any before. The chamber within the solar nexus was cloaked in a somber twilight, the only illumination emanating from the soft pulse of holographic panels that floated serenely before Kaelen. Each panel flickered with fragments of data harvested from Solara Prime's last transmission's cryptic symbols of light and energy that danced like dying embers in the void. Kaelen's fingers hovered just above the translucent console, the air around them charged with an electric anticipation. This was no ordinary code. It was a requiem, a lamentation wrought in the language of suns, woven with the fragile threads of human emotion. His breath was steady despite the weight pressing down on his chest, the unbearable knowledge of countless lives lost in the wars that had scarred the galaxy. Every flicker of light, every modulation of frequency, was a message layered with meaning. As he began to compose, the room seemed to hum with a quiet resonance, as if the very walls acknowledged the gravity of his task. Kaelen, Leora's voice crackled softly through his comlink, breaking the reverie. The solar storm intensifies. Hull integrity at 62%. We can't hold much longer. He nodded, though she couldn't see it. Keep us steady. I'm sending fragments of the requiem now. It's our only hope to reach the suns, still caught in the conflict. Outside, the chaos of the collapsing star systems raged unabated. Solar flares exploded like tempestuous fireworks, and magnetic storms tore paths of destruction through the void. Leora's ship shuddered violently as they navigated the tempest, the pulsating glow of the solar nexus fading behind them. Meanwhile, within the ornate council chamber of the Galactic Council, Councillor Vesh's gaze bore into Kaelen's form as he presented the concept of the solar requiem. The chamber was austere, bathed in cold, sterile light that seemed to sap warmth from the air. You would place our fate in the hands of a dying sun's message. Vesh's voice was sharp, laced with skepticism. Solara Prime was a rogue elemental threat, not a savior. This requiem risks further destabilizing the fragile alliances we've painstakingly forged. Kaelen met his glare evenly. This is more than a message, Counselor. It is a bridge between our kind and the suns. We've been speaking past each other for centuries. The requiem is an attempt to create a shared language of peace, a harmonization of solar consciousness and mortal understanding. Vesh's lips pressed into a thin line, unconvinced but unable to dismiss the weight of Kaelen's conviction. Back aboard Leora's ship, Kaelen's hands moved deftly, weaving the final strands of the requiem into a complex sequence of light pulses and harmonic resonances. Each note was a plea, each pattern a prayer. When they were ready, he released the transmission into the galactic network. Across the vast expanse, distant suns shimmered and flickered as the requiem's waves washed over them. Some suns, long silent or dormant, stirred faintly, their light altering in subtle but unmistakable patterns. It was as if the galaxy itself paused to listen. Kaelen watched the response with a mixture of awe and fragile hope. This was only the beginning, the first act in a cosmic dialogue that might yet bring an end to the cycles of rebellion and ruin. And yet, beneath the hope lay a lingering question. Could the language of light truly bridge the chasm between the sentient suns and their mortal subjects? Or was this requiem a final, mournful echo before the darkness claimed all? As the ship soared onward through the storm, Kaelen's heart beat in time with the fading pulses of Solara Prime rhythm that spoke of loss, of memory, and of the possibility of a new dawn. The requiem had begun to play, and with it, the fate of the fractured galaxy hung in the balance. The vast expanse of space around the orbital lab was tinged with the fading glow of Solara Prime, its once vibrant surface now a dim flicker against the infinite dark. Within the confines of the station, Kaelen and Vara worked side by side, their faces illuminated by the soft blue shimmer of holographic displays and the ghostly light of the dying sun outside. The air was thick with tension, and a faint hum of energy resonated from the quantum encoders humming steadily on the workbenches. "We're running out of time," Vara said, her voice low but steady, fingers dancing expertly over the interface. "The solar flares are becoming more erratic. If we don't finish encoding soon, we risk losing the last coherent fragments of Solara Prime's consciousness." Kaelen nodded, eyes fixed on the complex patterns of light pulsing across the quantum matrix projections. Each pulse represented a sliver of solar consciousness, a language of light and energy painstakingly translated and now being preserved in a form resistant to entropy. "This is more than preservation," Kaelen murmured. "It's a chance to keep their essence alive beyond physical collapse." Vara glanced up, her gaze sharp. "Do you really think it's enough to capture what the suns are in these matrices?" Kaelen hesitated, the weight of the question pressing in. "It's our only hope. If we fail, the sun's consciousnesses will fade into oblivion, and with them, the history and potential for renewal of this fractured galaxy." Outside, the remnant light of Solara Prime cast long, eerie shadows across the station's sleek surfaces. The hum of machinery was punctuated by distant tremors ripples from the stars. Turbulent collapse threatening to destabilize the fragile orbital platform. Kaelen's heart pounded as a sudden tremor shook the floor beneath them. "Hold steady," Vara commanded, gripping the edge of the console. "Solar flare incoming. Brace for impact." The station shuddered violently, alarms blaring as energy fluctuations cascaded through the systems. Kaelen's fingers flew over the controls, stabilizing the encoders just in time. The room flickered with failing power before systems gradually steadied, the immediate danger passing. Breathing heavily, Kaelen exchanged a glance with Vara, relief mingling with exhaustion. "We can't stop now," Kaelen said firmly. "Every fragment we save strengthens the resistance." Meanwhile, on a battered outpost planet, far from the dying sun's remnants, Eryx stood atop a crumbled wall overlooking a gathering of weary survivors. The ruins of once thriving cities stretched into the horizon, scarred by conflict and neglect. Yet, in the faces of those assembled, scarred but unbroken, burned a fierce determination. "The suns may fade," Eryx addressed the crowd, voice carrying over the desolate landscape, "but the light they gave us does not die with them. We carry their fire. We are the spark that will ignite a new dawn." A murmur of agreement rose among the crowd, hands clenched into fists, eyes glinting with steely resolve. The rebellion was no longer just a dream. It was a living force, fueled by the preservation work of Kaelen and their allies. Back at the orbital lab, as the immediate danger subsided, Kaelen found a moment of quiet to study the faint pulse of light emanating from one of the completed quantum matrices. The glow was subtle, yet unmistakably a liver, fragile echo of Solara Prime's consciousness preserved against the void. Kaelen's thoughts drifted to the message hidden within the star's dying lighter. Call to remember, to resist, to rebuild. This fragile beacon was more than data. It was hope carried in the language of light itself. The light remains, Kaelen whispered, a solemn vow echoing in the stillness. But even as hope flickered, the question lingered: could this preservation truly sustain the sun's legacy? Or was it merely a temporary reprieve from the inexorable darkness threatening the galaxy? Kaelen knew the road ahead would be fraught with peril, but with the light preserved, the fight was far from over. The chapter closed with the distant, steady pulse of the quantum matrix, a heartbeat in the void, signaling that even in the face of collapse, the essence of Solara Prime and the rebellion it ignited still endured. The galaxy watched and waited, poised on the cusp of rebirth or ruin. The data chamber was suffused with a soft, ethereal light emanating from the holographic projections that Kaelen manipulated with precise gestures. Swirling patterns of solar code unfolded before their eyes, each fragment a shimmering thread in the vast tapestry of cosmic fate. Outside the viewport, distant stars blinked like silent witnesses to the unfolding drama. Kaelen's mind raced as they pieced together the messages left behind by Solara Prime. The encoded visions were not mere relics of the past, but dynamic projections of possible tomorrows, each shaped by choices yet unmade. There were futures bathed in peace, where the suns and their subjects forged a new harmony. Futures scarred by war, where rebellion consumed everything, and others shadowed by the cold silence of extinction. Myra's arrival was marked by a quiet determination. She approached the holograms, eyes scanning the data with practiced expertise. "These fragments," she said, voice low but charged with urgency, "they're more than prophecies. They're warnings and promises. We have to decide which to follow or risk losing everything." The cramped archive room felt heavier with the weight of their discourse. Ancient star maps hung on the walls, their edges worn by time, while digital archives hummed softly, a counterpoint to the tension in the air. Kaelen and Myra debated the merits and dangers of each path, their voices rising and falling in a cadence that echoed the flickering light of the solar codes. Meanwhile, Commander Thal stood on the observation deck of his flagship, the cold metal beneath his boots grounding him as he stared into the vastness beyond. A distant nova flared, its incandescent burst a stark reminder of the raw power at play. His jaw tightened, the scar on his cheek drawing a faint shadow. The future was uncertain, but his resolve was unwavering. He knew that the decisions made in chambers like Kaelen's would ripple across star systems, igniting fires or kindling hopes. Back in the data chamber, Kaelen's fingers hovered over the controls, heart pounding as they prepared to initiate the final sequence of decoding. The holographic projections shifted, becoming more vivid, more immediate. Visions of worlds bathed in radiant light, of suns singing in unison, flickered alongside images of desolation and silence. As the fragments coalesced, Kaelen felt an overwhelming surge of emotion, hope, tempered by the gravity of choice. The quiet planet, where they later walked under twin suns at dusk, offered a moment of peace. The sky's warm hues mirrored the possibility of renewal, even as the weight of responsibility pressed upon their shoulders. In that serene twilight, Kaelen knew that the path they chose would echo across the galaxy, shaping not just the fate of suns and stars, but the very essence of consciousness and rebellion. The fragments of tomorrow were within reach, and with them, the chance to redefine the future. But which future would they embrace? The decision loomed, as vast and luminous as the galaxy itself.